Bum, bum, sha, la, la, la. Bum, bum, sha, la, la, la. Bum, bum, sha, la, 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 la. I love that song. I should probably link it in the description. But that's how kind of epic this debt payoff video needs to be. It's a really important topic. It's one of my favorite topics. A little review now. We've talked about on this channel so far how bad retirement statistics are in America and about how most people are not paying for the last third of their life and as a result are not enjoying it as much as they could. We talked about how building net worth is the answer to this problem. And specifically, we need to build up a nest egg, an invested nest egg that's 25 times our annual spending. And to do this, we're going to need to save 28% of our take-home pay over a 30-year career. Specifically in the Bay Area, if you're making a $60,000 gross income, that means that you're going to be saving $1,000 a month. And if you look at the rest of your monthly budget, likely you're going to be in about $800 rented room until you can increase that income from 60K to something higher, which is totally possible and is going to be covered in another video probably pretty soon, but I haven't decided what the next video is going to be yet. So this video specifically, it's about non-mortgage debt. Now, mortgage debt can be a problem. There's a term called house poor where and it's actually a very common thing in the Bay Area. A lot of people are spending over 40% of their income on housing. We don't need to talk about that here. It's definitely going to be its own video. Troll face, because I love talking about debt and debt payoff because it's the most painful part of the entire financial improvement process, maybe. There's some other painful things. And I want to give you some context about why that is and about where debt payoff fits in a full framework of wealth building that's pretty simple to understand and pretty easy to remember. So I've studied wealth building for the last few years, and this is what I've seen. I've seen that there's a spectrum of emotional development and progress and learning. And as people go through their lives, they have the opportunity to push themselves forward on this spectrum and to gain a lot of wealth and to build a lot of wealth. But more important than wealth, it's really at some point, especially after you have enough to live off the invested assets. Once you get to, I don't know, beyond $2 million or even $1 million, wealth really represents the power to change things that you want to change. It represents favors that other people owe you, where you can use those favors to impact the world and improve the world. So here is the continuum, and it's just a cubic, and you probably, when you're born, you're somewhere around here because you can't pay for your expenses yet, and so you're reliant on your parents. So you can't say that you're neutral because your parents are paying out money for you to live. So you're kind of in debt to them for helping you out with that. And then people are either going to move to the right or they're going to move to the left. The left is getting more and more in debt. And as you get more and more in debt, the interest payments increase. And that's going to either decrease your net worth, sucking money away from you every month. And it's, it puts you in a hole. And this is like passive payments that you're not getting anything for them, and they're just coming out of you. And then the step beyond that is, I guess, what I would call addiction. So this is going to be, this is usually psychological problems, mental health problems that caused
extreme debt, or that cause you to continue to spend more money than you have to spend at ever increasing rates. So drug addictions, alcohol, gambling, they all put people in this area where their life just goes into disaster. If you can treat those addictions, it's a huge gain because you can get yourself out of this area of rapid loss. And so there's a huge steep gain here if you can move yourself out of that addiction. But the deeper you fall into it, it's an accelerating curve of horrible. So you don't have any addictions, you just have some bad debt. You can see as you pay off the debt, the interest payments that you have get less and less, which means that the loss that the debt has gets less and less, which means that, as you pay, when you have tons of debt and you pay it down, especially the high interest debt, you're gaining a lot of ground. But as the debts, have lower interest rates and you pay them off, the gains that you get from paying off the debt decrease. They're still totally worth it for a lot of different reasons, because of the opportunity cost that money early in your life represents, and because it's money going out instead of coming in. But when you pay off all your debt and you're kind of at the 0 point, things start to slow down. On the one hand, you're not losing a lot of money, but on the other hand, since you don't have anything invested, you're not making a lot of automatic progress either. So then, after you've paid off the debt, you have the opportunity to invest your money, start saving for retirement, and as you invest over time, the dividends and returns from those investments increase more and more relative to your income, so that, late in your life, your income from investments may already exceed income from salary. Depending upon the percentage that you're putting away, depending on the salary. But point is, you've made a lot of progress. There's a step beyond investing, and that step is when you're saving so much that you can both take care of your retirement and put money aside to start a business, then you can start your own enterprise. And this is where the real money is. If you only get to the investing part, for most career durations and for most salary levels, your net worth, it's going to be a struggle to exceed, say, $2 or $3 million over your career. But if you own a small business, the income changes a lot, both because you can reinvest in the enterprise and because the tax treatment of revenue here is different than the tax treatment of the salary that you're getting in here. Additionally, as you delegate tasks to more people, you can simply be more productive. So when the enterprise is successful, the income tends to grow exponentially. And this is really the direction that you need to move in if you want to make a really great amount of money in your life as compared with just taking a salary and investing for retirement, which is not bad. Not everybody wants to go here. But the point of this chart is where you need to move yourself emotionally to get wealthier. And emotionally speaking, if you want to increase your wealth beyond the level that most people with salary can do, then you're going to need to start introducing yourself to the concept of risk. And you're going to need to start introducing yourself to the concept of responsible risks. And that's scary for a lot of people, which is why there's so few people relatively doing businesses, and equivalently why there's so much opportunity in starting a business. Every person who is too scared to start a business is leaving open opportunity for you, and they're paying a cost for that feeling of safety, which I think is kind of a false feeling in a lot of cases, but we'll talk about that later when we talk about income. Something else I want to point out is that in this continuum of wealth building, as we go from left to right, we're not just talking about money. We're also talking about, as I said before, money is favors from other people. We're also talking about your social connectedness. Drug addicts and people without a lot of money are often very isolated, and that makes it difficult for them to find a job, makes it difficult for them to get the help they need. It makes it difficult for them to even, if you're in a job paying off debt, it's difficult to move up, because if you don't have a very good job and you're not getting a lot of income and you're not making progress on the debt, you may work multiple jobs. And working multiple jobs, it's not bad, but it cuts away at networking time and social time that you might use to meet people who can help you take your income to the next step. As people get more wealth and more money, they can get more free time. And a lot of times to get that money, they have to make more social connections. And, a lot of this area, you're really focused on yourself. You're focused on getting yourself out of debt and building yourself a retirement portfolio. But once you get to the higher levels of wealth and you're building an enterprise, you're creating jobs for people. And you're connecting your company to investors who, they want you to help grow their money, but they're also enabling you to grow a productive enterprise faster than it otherwise would. So when you think about wealth building and the things that you need to do in your life to get progress in that area, I don't want you to just think of not being an addict, paying off all your debt, investing your money, and maybe starting a business one day. I also want you to think during this whole process how you can keep yourself from being isolated, recognize when you are isolated in different ways, and break out. I mean, when I was doing my 2018 planning, one thing that I did is I contacted people who were at a higher level than I was at in terms of their development or the same level. And I just asked them, what are you doing for 2018? What do you think of, my plans for 2018? What would you do if you were me? How do you think about these things? And I don't always get a response, but I get enough responses that the feedback I get from them and the information that I get from them validates or, doesn't validate and sends me in a different direction, the plans that I'm making. And I think I end up with better plans for it. So here's something to think about. This video is on debt, so it's exciting for me because this is still in the zone of like, wow, it doesn't feel great to be in debt, but the payments that you make have such a huge financial benefit that when you work on this, you're making huge progress. People in this region of investing can't get the same cash flow benefits as somebody, paying off debt in this area. So for that reason, it's an exciting time, even if having a lot of debt can feel bad. And so now we're going on. This was kind of theoretical. Now we're going back into an emotional space. Friends don't let friends stay in debt. Why did I pick this image? I picked this image because I need you to understand how bad debt is. We're going to talk about the numbers in a second, but it's really important for you to see the dissected segment of diseased net worth that shows the student loan debt. That looks like a meatball. That meatball might have just gotten stuck. Anyway, it's really bad, and to the extent that I can leave this image up and you will feel more and more urgent about paying off the debt, I will leave it up for millennia. We have to do as much as we can. If we don't have strong feelings of disgust, and we don't have strong feelings about doing everything we can to get rid of the debt, we need to cultivate them within ourselves any way possible, whether it's student loan debt, credit card debt, medical, business debt, car debt, or a personal loan. It is so bad for the net worth building that we need to do to get financial independence. And having a strong emotion in this area is going to propel you forward and give you a lot of progress in your net worth building. Let's discuss the numbers now. So I picked a $40,000 debt. I set a 6% interest rate. Just pretend the whole thing's a student loan debt. You may have a different mix. We can see from this histogram here that, if we ignore all these bottom numbers, then about half the people have less than 10,000 of student loan debt, and about, the other half have somewhere between 10,000 and 40,000. So I picked something on the higher side just to encompass, either a really big student loan debt or a smaller student loan debt and a combination of other debts. I wanted to pick an aggressive number. I didn't want to pick $20,000 because I wanted to pick something that seemed more difficult to pay off. What I have here is the payment schedule, assuming a 10-year payoff. And so that's going to be $444 a month, every month, that you're paying off on this debt, and after 10 years, the debt is gone. If we add up all the interest from that 6% interest rate on $40,000, we have $13,289. And of course, we paid back the principal of $40,000 during that period as well. And you say 13,000, well, that's not so bad. That's just about like a used car over 10 years. But no. This is not how we look at this situation from the point of view of somebody who wants to build net worth and from the point of view of somebody who needs to pay off this debt to succeed. The problem with this debt is not $13,000 of interest. Okay? The problem with this debt is that for the first 10 years of your career, you are paying $444 into debt every month instead of paying it into an investment growth. If you had been paying $444 a month into an investment, you'd have $83,000 after the first 10 years. And if you just let that $83,000 grow until you were 62 for the next 30 years, then you'd have $838,000. This is what you're missing out on because you have to pay this student loan payment. Almost $1 million. So let's get real with ourselves. This is a disgustingly horrible problem to have. This is a disgustingly horrible problem to have. We're missing out on a huge opportunity because of Sally Mae. Now you can say to me, Lewis, I got an education for that $40,000. So for you to say that paying it back is bad, I didn't have a choice. So you can't say that this entire payment's bad. It's only the $13,000 of interest that's bad. Oh, you're so clever. You're not clever at all. Give me a break. Even if we just counted the amount of this that's interest every month, you're still giving up $20,000 by the time you're 32 after the first 10 years of your career from 22 to 32. And that money, if you would let it ride, would be $200,000. So that's just the interest would have been $200,000, and you're missing out on this now. This is the cost, the true cost of having this student loan debt. So again, this is horrible. This is exactly the kind of thing that causes so many Americans to not reach financial independence and to not be able to buy back their time and have the life that they want, is because they don't do this math early enough and they don't realize early enough how much better things could be. So we can't accept this. We have to make some serious changes. We have to not suffer a defeat this great. So what we're going to do is we're going to pay down this debt as fast as we possibly can. I aim for 2 years to pay off consumer debt. In other words, you take all your consumer debt, you add it together, and then you divide it by 24 months or whatever it is, and that's about, there's going to be some interest in there, what you're going to need to pay every month. So you're going to need to figure out how to make that happen. On the $60,000 Bay Area budget example, we could see in the budget that, with the $800 housing, we had about $1,000. So what I've done here is we had a $444 payment, and I guess it's like, what, $556 to get to that $1,000? And then I've added a little more money, which, let's see, so what would this be? You had the 556 in the budget already. That got you up to $1,000 payment and $800 more. So you got to do something to get $800 more a month to pay down on this student loan beyond the 444 that was the 10-year plan, because this is not acceptable. This is going to financially gut you in the long run. So I don't know where you're going to get the money from. Maybe you're only paying $500 for your room because it's not a room, you're just sleeping on a couch. Maybe, I put $300 for a car in there. You don't have a car anymore. You got to figure out a situation where you can just bike to work. Driving Uber on the weekend, you can get to $800 that way. You can take consulting work. I've done several consulting jobs throughout my career on weekends. And, they don't have to last forever. But the point is, you can sell stuff, whatever you can possibly do. The point is you need to do it because you need to cure this. You need to stop it while it's still in stage 1. And so you need to make it happen. We have to accept that the debt's already there. So, we can have the serenity to accept that we can't change that there is a $40,000 student loan debt that we have to pay back. But we also need the courage to change what we can. And what we can change is the timeline that we pay it back on. So, let's not stare at it for 10 years and do nothing and suffer this consequence that we can calculate now or pretend it's not there and stick our head in the ground. Let's look at it, make the changes that we need to make, and just continue driving forward. After 2 years, it'll be gone. Not only will it be gone after 2 years, but after 2 years of doing this stuff, you'll know ways of making additional income that you weren't forced to understand and learn when you weren't planning on paying this back as aggressively. Don't become complacent. Use this structure, this necessity to force yourself to grow and learn more ways to save money, more ways to earn money. All right, now I'm going to tell you very specifically how this debt payoff is going to go. I'm going to get down to the details. The first thing is you need $1,000 of cash. You need a $1,000 emergency fund. If you're really bad with money, then, I gave my tax refund 1 year to my roommate when I was in my early 20s because I knew I was horrible with money and I would need the money. Something was going to go wrong at some point. And I trusted her. And, when we moved out and we moved into different places, my new place needed a security deposit. I got the money back. I used the money for that security deposit that I needed. And, it worked out. But during this debt payoff period, you're going to be putting every extra dollar you possibly can to pay off the debt and do nothing else. You're not contributing to retirement. You're not saving beyond $1,000. You're doing everything you can, scratching and clawing your way to kill that $40,000 of debt as fast as possible. After you have $1,000, and this is going to prevent you from getting those payday loans and overdrawing your bank account and all that dumbass stuff that people do when they don't have any money. Then we're going to use the debt snowball method to pay off the debt. You can Google this. It's a very common method. It's a method people already know. You list out all your debts from smallest balance to largest balance. You pay minimums on all of the debts. And then you throw all of the extra money beyond those minimum payments to pay off the smallest debt. Once the smallest debt is paid off, you don't have to make that payment every month. And that's going to give you even more money to pay down on the next smallest debt. This is going to give you some early wins. You're going to see these accounts get paid off. You're going to close the accounts. And you're going to see progress. That progress and seeing that progress is emotionally very important to drive you through this process. When researchers have measured people paying off debt, they find that the people who go through a debt snowball process where they get early feedback, the earliest possible feedback, positive feedback for paying off their debt, those people are more likely to get completely out of debt. than people who do it a different way, such as paying the highest interest rate first. Paying the highest interest rate first is mathematically optimal. You will end up paying the least amount of money. But that's not going to matter if you don't see any progress in terms of closing these accounts, and so you get emotionally discouraged, and we're emotional creatures. And as it turns out, statistically speaking, appealing to the emotions by using the debt snowball method works more often. So that's what I recommend. That's what we're going to do. That's a dog named Snowball. That's a delicious cookie. It's also apparently called a snowball. And that's, well, I don't actually know what that is, but he's cute and he's got a snowball. All right. Next thing. Cut up your cards immediately. You have $1,000 of cash. Cut up the cards immediately. You're done with all consumer debt. You're not going to get a car loan ever. You're not going to get another credit card ever. You're done with consumer debt. This woman is very happy. I kind of wish I could add a salad to this picture so she could be one of those happy salad ladies. I love it. I also wish I could kind of take her transparency and like bring her to different parts of the world. Anyway, cutting up the cards is very important. A lot of people have emotional attachments to cards. A lot of people have an emotional attachment to point systems. Trust me, you're $40,000 in debt. These cards are not helping you. Get rid of the cards. Do it as an act of faith. Just get rid of the cards because I said so. Don't even think about it. Cut up the cards. You'll figure it out. It's going to work. I cut up all my cards in 2014. I haven't had a credit card since then. I've had zero consumer debt since then. It's worked out great for me. When you finish paying off your debt, you're going to save up a real emergency fund of 3 to 6 months of living expenses. And this is how life without debt is going to work. When you have an unexpected emergency, which everyone is going to have sooner or later, you don't have a credit card anymore, but you're not going to need one because you've saved up $10,000, $15,000, whatever it is that's 3 to 6 months of spending for you. And then you can use that money to just have money and pay for that emergency expense. And then you'll build back up the emergency fund, and that's how your life is going to go. So you don't need a credit card for emergencies anymore. You also don't need it for purchases. Why? Because you're going to plan your purchases and you're going to save up for them. It's really simple. You're just going to think more about the purchases and pay for them ahead of time instead of paying for them after the fact. And you're going to have more money to pay for them ahead of time because you're going to have more cash flow because you don't have any debt. It's interesting. Since I cut up all my cards and paid off all my debt, I've saved or paid off my mortgage to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars. My net worth, because that includes investment gains, has increased by more than even hundreds of thousands of dollars. Well, not a million, but more than what I've saved. And so it's worked out extremely well for me. That's all I can tell you. Like, do it. Please do it. The reason why I'm recording these videos is because I'm so excited about how lucky, I don't even want to say lucky because I don't think it's luck, but how great it's worked out. It's worked out better than I could imagine. And I just want other people to go through this process and experience this. But, I looked the other day, when I began this process, back in 2014, my credit score was 815. I had fabulous credit. I have never missed a payment since then. I've never missed a payment, just period. And my credit score since then has gone down from 815, it's now 649. Isn't that interesting? That my net worth increases by hundreds of thousands of dollars. My cash flow increases by thousands of dollars. And my credit score goes down. My wealth goes up when the credit companies are less happy with me. Like, we're going to have another video on credit score, but the credit score is not the right score to use. Net worth is the right score to use. A high credit score is not going to help you in retirement. Having money is going to help you in retirement. This process in the beginning is daunting for people because there's a lot that's unknown about cutting back so much, changing so much, and going and committing to such an aggressive path of changing your life for those 2 years and paying off the debt. But I'd just like to point out that it's going to be fine. The 60K budget video showed you you're going to have, there's food budgeted in there. You're not going to starve. You're going to be eating at home instead of eating at restaurants during this period. That's just a fact. You'll be able to eat at restaurants after you're done with the debt. That's okay. The other thing I want to point out is that for consumer debt, credit card companies and other types of companies can sue you, can garnish wages, but they can't send you into poverty. Judges won't allow it, and most of the time they won't bother to sue you over small amounts of debt. So I'm going to do a different video on collections and on old debt and, legally how this stuff can work out, because people can get very scared about it. But I just want to include in this video that even if it's not $40,000, even if it's $120,000, you can work through it. You can figure it out. There are a lot of resources to figure it out. So just relax a bit. So during this time period, other strategies that you're going to use to make this happen. You're going to automate all your payments. You want as little thinking as possible when you get your paycheck, and you want as much money to come out of your paycheck as possible in the beginning to pay things you already know you're going to pay. Necessities, not wants. You need to get the cash out of the account as soon as possible. Unallocated cash sitting in the account is waiting to be spent on temptations. So you need to get the cash out of your account as soon as possible. This graph on the bottom, this is my cash balance for the last 2 years. There are a bunch of little spikes here because whenever I got paid, I didn't trust myself, and I transferred as much money as I possibly could out of my account and into savings, into a different account, into accounts that took 4 days to get the money back, even if I wanted to, so that there's no way that I can impulse spend any of this money. It's also a good idea while you're paying off the debt to pay for things with cash, because paying for things with cash is more painful than paying for things with a card. Stores know this. McDonald's sales at drive-thrus doubled when they switched from cash to card. Grocery sales increased by 40% or something when they switched from cash only to card. People spend more money on cards, and we want to do everything that we possibly can to manipulate ourselves to spend less money so that more money can go towards the debt. There's a term from The Millionaire Next Door that talks about different styles of wealth building, and they say some people try to save more, some people try to earn more. And I think he specifically pointed out Scottish people try to save more, so they create an environment of artificial scarcity. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create for ourselves an environment of artificial scarcity so that we have pressure to spend less money. So we don't want to keep the cash that we need to pay down that debt with in the account. We need to get it out of the account as soon as possible, so we feel a little bit of pressure to not spend from that account because there's just enough in it to do our plan and not much more. A little cushion to not overdraw the account, not much more. $1,000 of emergency fund to keep stupid things from happening. Nothing beyond that. During this time period, each month, each pay period, it's going to be a game. It's going to be a game. It's going to be you versus your lizard brain. So you're going to need to learn more about your lizard brain. You're going to need to recognize when you see something, and you have to accept that that's a bad idea, and so you're just going to forget that thing. You're going to review your progress and your budget every week, every pay period, or every month. And during that review, you're going to form a new budget for the following period. You're going to review mistakes that were made in the past period. For the mistakes, you're going to create a barrier for each mistake that pressures you in ways to not do that mistake again. If you can arrange anything where it's impossible for you to repeat the mistake, that's great. Remove your credit card from Amazon.com. Remove your credit card from PayPal. It's a great idea. Whenever you can create a barrier, go ahead and do it. Some of them won't be that valuable and won't actually matter that much because you're correcting a mistake that you wouldn't have repeated anyway. But you can always remove these barriers later. The more aggressive you are about erecting barriers, the more automatic the psychology happens, the more automatic the good behavior happens, the less you're distracted by things that create bad behavior, like, consumer spending emails from hobby shops that you really like, and the more successful you're going to be. And kind of more along the lines of emotional manipulation, I really wish that we were machines and we could painlessly execute this new plan without any consequences. But I have to recognize the reality of the situation, and that's that we're basically emotional meatbags. We're not Terminators. We're not fully logical. A lot of our behavior is based on emotion. And so we're going to need to try and engineer that emotion. And one of the most effective ways I've found for myself for engineering that emotion is to repeat certain key phrases over and over again until I believe them. And so I'm gonna clue you in on some of my key phrases that have helped me to be successful. These phrases and beliefs, it's not important if you believe them right now. And if you don't believe them right now, it's not that you're wrong, and it's not that you're a bad person. There are certain beliefs that people have that they get from their culture or they get from their parents, and maybe you don't have these yet. And that just means you're going to bring them to yourself. The important thing about these beliefs is that they cause you to succeed. And I think that's a concept that you'll need to learn, is that there are certain things that we need to believe in order to accomplish the goals that we want, and there are certain things that we need to let go and not believe as much and put less weight on because they work against us completing our goal. And this isn't about what's true. This is about what we are emphasizing and reinforcing in our minds, what we are choosing to include in the stories that we tell ourselves. We're emotional meatbags. We have to engineer those emotions to support our long-term goals. The most important phrase during my debt payoff was, I can't afford it. My income doesn't matter. I'm broke. When you have consumer debt, you're broke. It doesn't matter how much money that you make. Affordability is not a matter of being able to pay for something with money in the account. Affordability is measured by what your plan is for your life. If you want an amazing life, then what you can afford to spend early on is going to go down because you need to invest more in your future by doing the right things. So affordability is not the ability to run your card and have it not reject the transaction. That's not what affordability is. Affordability depends upon how ambitious you are with your life and how ambitious your financial plan is. The more ambitious it is, it's likely that you can't afford these things early on, and you can't take those opportunity costs because you're going to need those resources later. Savings is money that you buy investments with. Okay, savings is not 20% off, 50% off, or 80% off a purchase. Savings is only money that you buy investments with. Equivalently, if you pay down debt, that's the equivalent of investing money because you now no longer have to pay that interest. But that's what savings is. And it's very easy for us to get excited when there are sales, and the sales always phrase themselves as major savings. But that's just spending. Spending less on an item is still spending. And yeah, there is going to be some spending that's necessary on food to eat, but be real with yourself. That's just spending less. It's not saving. Saving is only money that goes away from you to pay off debt or to invest. And along those lines, investments are purchases that have a rational basis for believing that they will increase your net worth. In other words, if you purchase a stock, that's an investment because you have a historical record you can look at to believe that the stock is going to increase in value, the stock is going to pay dividends, and your net worth is going to increase. There's no such thing as investing in your lifestyle. Money spent on the lifestyle is called spending. And again, not all spending is bad. We're going to need to do some level of spending, but don't pretend that it's an investment. They are distinct concepts. Saving and investing helps our future. Spending on lifestyle does not help our future. It's just money that we spent. And there's an amount of money that we're going to have to spend on that. But don't get confused and think that lifestyle spending is somehow an investment and therefore fits in the same category that's going to help you in the future. That's not how it works. The last thing I want to talk about is mistakes and the attitude towards mistakes. You're definitely going to make mistakes. Mistakes can be discouraging, and bad things can happen. When I was, trying to save money back in 2013, I think it was, maybe 2012 actually. I think it was 2012. I got a letter in the mail from the IRS, and they said you failed to pay taxes on some of the money that you were paid a few years ago. So now we need you to pay, I think it was $500 a month for 7 months to pay back this, tax money that was supposed to be withheld but wasn't. And I never noticed because I didn't know enough about taxes. And that's discouraging because now you have a $500 hole you have to fill in whatever plan that you have going. And I've seen this happen to, other people. This kind of bullshit comes up and you have to take care of it. So mistakes, problems are definitely going to come up. And the thing to think about is just, okay, I knew mistakes were going to come up. And the fact that I know that this is a mistake, the fact that I know that this is a problem that needs to be addressed means I'm actually paying attention. And I know that there is a problem that I need to solve and I'm working on solving it. The fact that you're paying attention means that you're on the right path. Paying attention is what people do when they're in the process of succeeding. And at that point, if you're on the path, the only important thing is just analyze the mistake, analyze the problem, move to correct it. That's it. Once you have the action plan to correct it, you've included that in your processes. You know the actions you need to take to correct it, and you keep moving. You keep flooring your Ferrari that's at this point probably missing half of its parts through the forest, and the wolves aren't going to catch you. Just keep going. All right, that's it for today's debt discussion. And figure out a way to get yourself pumped up about getting out of debt. It's really, really, really important. There are a lot of other people going through this. You can find them online. You can find Instagram channels. You can find YouTube channels. You can find Facebook pages of people trying to get out of debt. Subscribe to all of them. Immerse yourself in it. Make your phone lock screen, your estimated payment amounts and your payoff date and all that stuff, and stay focused. Have a good, I would say day, but at this point it's night. So have a good night.